following program is for training purposes in TV news education. Some copyrighted material is used and is credited on screen. However, no more was taken than was necessary to tell the story of the event. YBA claims fair use of materials.
Let's talk about the other offense in this game, the Baltimore Ravens offense. Quarterback Joe Flacco, he outplayed Peyton Manning last week against the Broncos and Tom Brady, arguably two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. How do you guys think he did it, especially because a lot of people say that Flacco, he's not a very talented quarterback?
Well, you know, I've never thought Flacco was one of the top quarterbacks in this league, but after this year, I have to reconsider it. He goes and beats Andrew Luck, he beats Peyton Manning, he beats Tom Brady. It's unbelievable. He outplayed all of them. Now, obviously, we have to give credit to the rest of the Ravens team. They're unbelievable wide receivers, they're great defensive play, but Flacco really stepped up, hit the guys when he needed to, and he's just outplayed these other quarterbacks, and it's unbelievable. I didn't think he would be able to lead a team like this to the Super Bowl, but he's done it, and I've got to give him all the credit in the world for it.
Oh yeah, definitely. He took out two of the arguably the best quarterbacks to ever play the sport, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. I mean, he gave him great games, and he won those games.
The other high-powered tandem of this offense, running back Ray Rice, the Patriots seemed to shut him down a lot in the first half, but once Aqib Talib came out, Ray Rice seemed to explode. Now, Aqib Talib, he's not in the line. He's not in the core. So why do you think him going out affected the running game so much?
Well, I'm not sure why directly it affected the running game, but as I said, the entire defense looked flat once Talib went out. And when they started rushing Ray Rice, it was like the defense was deflated, had given up a little bit, and they weren't as physical on the line or in the cornerbacks, and they were able to let Ray Rice get 4 or 5 yards every single run, 4 or 5 yards the next run, 4 or 5 yards the next run, and that really opened up the play action for Flacco to throw it down the field to Torrey Smith and Anquan Bolden, as he did and scored touchdowns.
I think once the game unfolded in the second half, that's when things started to really go downhill for the New England Patriots.
So as we saw,
got worse and worse from there.
Well, as we saw, the defense really crumbled a little bit, as you said, but it wasn't really the defense's fault. The offense put up 13 points. You're not going to win any games like that.
And they had multiple chances in the red zone, too.
Oh, exactly.
Had to settle for field goals at the end of the first half.
So we can all say Talib going out really hurt the Patriots, and it obviously did. But if you only put up 13 points, what are your chances in the first place?
I can actually find a direct link of why Talib going out made the defense so poor in the running game stopping. Because they were playing a very one-on-one man offense because they know Talib can cover high-powered receivers. You take him out, you no longer have a corner who can cover high-powered receivers. So then you have to bring more corners back and more safeties back to help with the receiving core, which leaves the interior core more open for the running back. All right, thank you guys for your comments on this AFC Championship game. Now we're going to bring in our New York correspondent, Carter. How are you doing, Carter?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good, thanks. So we're going to jump right in with you, talk about Lance Armstrong and his doping scandal. What's your comments on this?
It's really just awful. Looking at this, looking at what Lance Armstrong came out and did on his interview with Oprah, where he basically came clean, as people would say, and admitted to doping during all 7 of his Tour de France titles and essentially throughout his entire cycling career. But what makes this Lance Armstrong story different from, say, Mark McGwire's doping story, where he lied about steroid use in baseball and then said, okay, I admit it, I doped, was that Lance Armstrong not only hurt himself throughout this doping scandal, hurt his own credibility, he vehemently took down anybody who, in telling the truth, said that he was a doper. He couldn't even remember during this interview with Oprah Winfrey how many people he had sued, how many innocent people who had been telling the truth he had sued. He couldn't remember, when asked about specific people, exactly what his legal action had been. Lance Armstrong had taken down so many people, bullied so many people, in keeping this monstrous lie going, that right now, for me personally, nothing Lance Armstrong is going to say will sway me at all.
I couldn't agree more. It's simple of fact. He threatened other teammates of his, not only other cyclists, teammates of his, that if they even said a word about him and doping, he threatened to hurt their families, he threatened to hurt their livelihood, he threatened to hurt everything they ever owned. Max, what do you think?
Well, I completely agree. It's a joke that this man had been so successful and had denied and denied and denied, had convinced himself that this lie was true. after so many years and that he would never admit to it. It's nice to see him coming out now, but I really don't think it changes anything. Nobody's opinion of him is better now that he's told the truth. It just confirms everyone's suspicions that they knew were true all along.
I think it's.
And you mentioned one specific thing about teammates and hurting, the families of teammates. Betsy and Drew, the wife of one of his teammates in cycling, one of the people that he raced with, said way back in 1996 that Lance Armstrong had doped, and he and his associates absolutely went after her. And he was asked about it. He addressed it in the interview, and he said, listen, I called you crazy. I called you a bitch. I called you all of these things, but hey, I never called you fat. And he gave a little smile as if that's some sort of a joke, as if that's going to make the situation better. And that kind of thing, it makes Lance Armstrong look just awful.
Tom, what about you? What do you think?
I think it looks Lance Armstrong look awful, and it makes the sport looks awful. I mean, the general consensus now is that all bikers are liars, and then this is kind of like Pete Rose betting on baseball, just denying it for several years and then finally coming out. No acknowledgement over the people he hurt and bullied.
Well, I know my opinion doesn't change at all of Lance Armstrong.
I think it's pathetic.
I think it's sad, and that the fact that he came out now, it doesn't change my opinion at all. It doesn't make
It doesn't change anything.
It doesn't make him seem like a better person. I don't know what you guys think. Do you think this helps his legacy at all now that he told the truth?
No. No, not at all. I mean, and I'm sure he thinks it will. And from looking at the interview, it seemed like he planned it out so that it possibly could. He's going to need a lot of sympathy when the lawsuits start flooding in, as they will. He's going to have a lot of illegal action against him. He's trying to obviously make his public image a little bit better. But this, in my mind, and I think in everybody's mind, I think everybody agrees that this didn't do anything for Lance Armstrong's credibility. It didn't do anything for Lance Armstrong's legacy. And that this was just basically an admission that Lance Armstrong was a terrible person and did lots of terrible things during his cycling career. In a way, to me, this makes it worse because it was all allegations. It was all reports that Lance Armstrong was such an awful human being while he was vehemently denying this. And now to have him go up and say, yes, this is all true, I did all of these terrible things, that makes Armstrong look worse because now it's all true, and now there's no doubt surrounding all these terrible things that Lance Armstrong has done.
To me, this story being confirmed puts sports in a whole new perspective for me. Because, I always wondered, we're in a very performance-enhancing drug era where a lot of players in every single sport are taking performance-enhancing drugs, doing something illegal to help them get better at sports. And I always thought, why? Here's I found an answer. To keep up with everybody else. They are trying to do it just to keep up with everybody else. If everybody stops doing steroids, if a lot of people stop doing steroids, the top players stop doing steroids, then the bottom players who are trying to get up there won't, because they won't have to keep up. What do you guys think?
Well, Dylan, I think you make an interesting point because we saw that Lance Armstrong, he denied, and he bullied people, and obviously he was wrong and not a good person for that. But does it give him any more credibility in the fact that he used all these performance-enhancing drugs, the fact that everyone else in cycling used them too?
Well, yeah, and Oprah Winfrey actually asked Lance Armstrong early on in the interview, basically saying, do you think that it was possible to win a Tour de France without doping? And he said, in my opinion, no. And I think that's true. It's widespread, especially in cycling. Doping is something that you basically have to do if you're going to contend because it's just so marred by doping as a sport. But like I said earlier, Lance Armstrong's situation is not. It goes far beyond just cheating on the bike. It's a whole new level, really.
It really is just a whole new level of cheating and despicableness. It's really despicable. We're gonna jump from the cycling to the ice. Tom Kelly, the Bruins today beat the Winnipeg Jets 2-1. What do you have to say?
Why, yes, they did, Dylan, but that game was so much harder than it should have been. I mean, the Jets come out 2 minutes in, they score a goal by Chris Thorborn. It's 1-0 Jets, and then Brad Marchand comes in, scores on the backhander, ties it up 1-1, and then back and forth play. And then the Bruins had so many chances and failed to capitalize on them, and then one bad call in overtime on Zdeno Chara on a Blake Wheeler half kind of breakaway. that could have been the game. That could have been it. The Bruins obviously have to play better on offense. They're still not giving any goal support to Tuukka Rask. That is just, despite the 3 goals against New York on Saturday. But they have to score more in front of Tuukka.
Well, that said, they did win the game, and now they're 2-0, which is good, especially in this shortened season. So while you're completely right, they did make these mistakes, and there were all these issues in the game, they are 2-0, and that's something to look forward to for the rest of the season.
Oh, definitely.
I agree with you guys. I was kind of surprised by this game a little bit, seeing that they beat the New York Rangers 3-1. New York Rangers are a very talented team. They beat them 3-1. Granted, it was at home, but that's a very, very, very big win. Now, barely beating the Winnipeg Jets in a shootout, that's a little bit, iffy for me. And also, I'd like to point out that they have not yet had a road test yet. To me, I have no identity for this Bruins team yet, whether they're a great offensive team, great defensive team, whether they're a great team overall. What do you guys think, Carter?
Well, it's important to point out that there weren't any preseason games coming into this season. That this is not your typical NHL year, and like you said, it's surprising. You don't know the identity of these teams, and that's really because they're just going in cold turkey. And 2 games into the season, it's going to be very hard to find an identity for anybody, regardless of how they perform on the ice.
Well, Carter, I mean, the NHL's so used to getting a lockout. I don't know how untypical this is.
And Carter, also, we saw the Bruins play the Rangers in their first game of the season, and the Bruins beat the Rangers and Henrik Lundqvist. What did you see from the Rangers, and what can you expect from them this season?
Well, you mentioned Henrik Lundqvist. They say the goalie is the most important position in hockey, and it's really the most important position when the season is as short as it is this year. And Henrik Lundqvist has not done a good job at all for the Rangers so far this season. He did make one great save against the Bruins, reaching back an exceptional glove save. But you're right, it was a 3-1 loss. Then they got smashed by the Penguins. He got pulled when the Rangers were trailing 4-1. The second game of the season, they're pulling Henrik Lundqvist. This is a guy that a lot of people consider to be the best goalie in the National Hockey League. So if the Rangers are going to contend, and I think they will, in a league where so many teams make the postseason, I think the Rangers are going to be able to go far in the playoffs. But if they're going to win any games, Henrik Lundqvist needs to improve, and fast. And
do you think Rick Nash is going to do anything? Is he going to break out sometime soon?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally plausible. He's looked okay over these past couple of games. He's scored, and to me, like I said earlier, the season's just getting started. The Rangers are rusty, and like you said with the Bruins, they don't know their identity yet. And I think that they're going to be able to work, and once they get into the flow of the season, then they're going to be able to get Rick Nash involved more over the course of the season.
And Carter, do you think if there's no Stanley Cup by the end of this season, do you think John Tortorella's job will be in trouble?
Well, that's always makes the distinction between, will he be fired and should he be fired? I don't think he should be. The Rangers had a good season last year, finishing, at the top of the Eastern Conference like they did. But if the Rangers continue to play as they have been playing these first 2 games of the season, which has been very disappointing, for fans, they're already beginning to panic two games into the year, then it could be a possibility. It's very speculative right now, obviously, when there are so many more games to be played and so many more things that could happen to the Rangers and the rest of the NHL over the course of a year. But obviously, if the Rangers have a very disappointing season, the coach being fired is always a possibility.
Well, like you said, it's very early in the season, only 2 games in, and we have to point out the Bruins-Rangers matchup, although the Bruins did win, those are 2 of the top teams in the NHL, the Bruins being a team that bringing back the core from last season, most of the players, the Rangers being a team with Henrik Lundqvist, Rick Nash, some star players like that. Nobody would be surprised if these 2 teams met again late in the playoffs, so to judge each team on a game like that where you're playing against a top rival, it's kind of hard to decipher how good you really are.
Well, I'm not much of a hockey fan, as some of you may know, but one thing I do know about sports is that a rivalry game is always a very important one. And to beat your rival by, 2 goals, that's from my understanding, 2 goals is a decent win, decent amount of goals to win by in hockey. Beating your rival by that much is a pretty good confidence booster, especially if it's the home opener. And it's a pretty good confidence booster.
And